I became the childhood friend of the Northern Duchess. I became the childhood friend of the Northern Grand Duchess. I guess it's fun to tease her. Genre: action, drama, fantasy, romance, slice of life. Prologue. Edgar is originally not from this place. It's not referring to a region, to be precise. He wasn't an inhabitant of this world. He has spent almost 20 years living in this novel world, which he at first thought was nothing but just an illusion. From this world, there is a person he had known since he was a child, one whom he had shared his joys and sorrows with. Your Highness, how about you consider taking a small break? She is also the woman who has become his master and the one he now has to serve. Ariel Robeheim, the current head of the Grand Dukedom of the Robeheim family, who has the power to control most of this vast northern region within her grasp with ease. Today, as always, she had her head stuck in a pile of paper document. You are still the same, Ed. You don't have a good eye for judging what I want. I told you to be comfortable around me. Your Highness has ordered me to work well as your servant, isn't it so? Nope. Ariel mumbled and nervously ruffled her raven dark hair that had reached to her waist. Why is she talking nonsense like this? She must be well aware of the man's bad temperament, having been together with him for years. In any case, his mouth is the main problem. It was about half a year ago, when the two childhood friends had just formed a master-servant relationship. At that time, she had jokingly said, I will be your master from now on, so you must obey me and serve me well. I don't think ignoring the master's orders is an advisable behavior as a servant. Is your Highness someone who takes back her word this simply? TSK, I do not detest you, since you have such poor speaking skills. She was one of the 3 most powerful people in this empire in name and reality, and she was also an iron-blooded duchess who ruled the tough foreigners in the north by force. Nevertheless, she often lost in arguments with a man whom she had known for a long time. If anyone else were to witness this scene, they will rub their eyes dozens of times. Because it was such a surreal scene. So, what about the things that the capital city has sent here? I think it should have been organized by now. Would you like to check after you finish your meal? It's okay. Anyway, it must have been done well since you are the one who organized it. She isn't the kind of broad-minded woman who handles official affairs this superficially. It's simply a trust on Edgar, and the recognition of the man's ability as he has never disappointed her until now. What will you do with the foreigners that have been captured? Are you going to accept for the negotiation? Don't respond anything. About a week ago, there was a big event to wipe out the troubles that had been plaguing the north. There were a little over 100 foreigners captured as prisoners. She offered negotiation on the condition of handing over the prisoners, but on the other hand, she kept silent, not showing any visible actions at all. Ariel's crimson-red eyes cast a glare at him upon being informed of that matter. They were the thorns who kept bothering her beloved northern region. She didn't plan to sit down at the negotiating table anyway. Kill them all. I've been entrusted with full authority by the Emperor. Despite her treatment of the supreme power of the Empire, Edgar's eyes did not waver much. Who dare blame her when the Emperor is not even here in the first place? Moreover, considering her influence, it may not be impossible. Understood. How shall we do it? It's not good. We can make use of their defeat and trample on it again. Set up a tall pole in front of the barricade and hang a man over there. Their side holds the handle anyway. It was like an annual event for the foreigners to invade the north, but each time, this iron-walled line of defense boasted its strength again and again. It's getting colder day by day, so if those foreigners run out of food, they'll take action. Hanging a head was simply meant as a provocation. Despite the bloody conversation they were having, their facial expressions were calm. Ariel in particular was enjoying the scenery outside and stretching leisurely, which greatly contrasts against the cold face she had just now. I wish we had lamb for dinner. The words spilled over involuntarily. Edgar's lips twitched and curved upward. Although Ariel didn't notice it. Huh? The man's heavy voice rang softly in the office. After a few moments of silence, noticing that the voice belongs to Edgar, Ariel's eyes widened. It's her nickname, a name that only one person would ever called beside her parents. But it was also a name she thought she would never hear again. She turned her head swiftly. There she saw Edgar with a calm expression on his face. Where her crimson-red eyes glared at him as if daring him to say it again, the corner of his mouth visibly went up. "Let's have a meal. I knew you would ask for lamb, so I had it prepared for you." The fact that she enjoyed lamb on a day when she was feeling down, was something he knew very well as someone who had been with her for a long time. Today, for his master who must have had a lot of trouble due to political affairs, he prepared a homemade lamb dish. However, Ariel's response to the good news was not entirely positive. You're always like that." What did I do?" Ariel smashed the table into pieces in anger and pointed with her trembling fingers, but he just shrugged his shoulders lightly and strutted out of the office. This is the proof that even the title of the ruler of North was useless in front of the childhood friend who has spent most of their time together. Ariel, who was left behind, lowered her head and suppressed her anger. He's such a man who is brimming with self-confidence. I'm determined to properly teach you a lesson next time, so be prepared. Because I'm going to enjoy your anguish as the beauty of the day. The common pranks between them during their childhood were still there, even after they became the master and the servant. Where is this place and who is he? When a man named Kai Wu ended his life, his eyes fluttered open only to see a completely new scenery in front of him. He was cradled as a newborn baby in the arms of a man who wore clothing that is nowhere near the modern costumes he knew. Only question marks popped up in his mind, who has no medieval, modern or history knowledge. You are the eldest son of our Bilhak family. The man who identified himself as Lance Bilhak said proudly. The Bilhak family? The name sounds familiar as if he has heard it somewhere before. Where is this place and who is he? It took a long time for the puzzles in his mind to be resolved. When he turned 2 years old he met a girl who is the same age as him who could only babble so far, but this girl was popular enough for her name to be known by the mass amount of people. Ariel Robeheim? At the same time that particular 2 words rang out, something popped up in Edgar's mind. Ariel Robeheim? When he was in his previous life he had heard this name too many times. He remembered it was a character in the romance fantasy novel. It is also one of the misfortunate characters that appeared as a supporting role and dies at an early age. Unfortunately, he was not interested in romance fantasy novels, so it was a novel that he had not read properly. Why did he come to this world? It's obvious that these are the signs of transmigration. Otherwise, to appear in this world is almost impossible. This is the beginning of the novel he had read. When the story plot of the novel is poor and the reader writes a comment out of anger, they enter the world. Most, if not all, have not deviated from this. Still, why did he deviate from that frame? There were countless works that he had seen before he closed his eyes in the previous world. One might not be able to finish counting the novels he has read even if a whole day was spent. He can't believe that out of all the novel he has read, he had to enter the world of the novel that he had just skimmed through, leaving out many contents of the novel unread. How come I have accidentally came to a world like this? He preferred the life of the modern civilization than anyone else. It means that there was no way to be happy in a world without a smartphone, TV, or computer. If he was to enter a novel world that he likes, he might be able to think that he was on a trip. But when it is a novel which was he not interested in at all, it was just making things worse. Thank you for giving me a new start in life that doesn't mean anything to me. When Ariel, who was in her mother's arms, suddenly reached out. Edgar, in a body of a 2-year-old baby, was lamenting the new life of his. Edgar's head tilted slightly, when he realized that the hand was directed at him. What? Do all babies react in the similar way? He couldn't remember his behavior when he was a 2-year-old baby in his previous life. And because this life was the second, he doesn't know how to give the reaction that's of a complete 2-year-old baby. Naturally, he couldn't help but notice the meaning of Ariel's actions. Bah? Do you want me to hold you? Ariel, holding her mother's arms, swung her small hand with all her might, as if ready to reunite with the separated families. She was so cute that he wanted to take a bite of her. Here it is. Even though his mind was that of an adult, his body was still only a 2-year-old baby. Although he reached out his hand with all his might with the thought of being kind, he couldn't reach Ariel's hand at all. He struggled to get to his feet and tried to run away, but his mother, Katria, pulled him into her arms, and it failed. DDA. On the other hand, Edgar protests fiercely. However, even though he thought he had spoken properly, because of the structure of his mouth, only an unidentified babble came out, just like Ariel. "Oh, you can't do that. It's rude to the princess." Ah. He thought she had pulled him back because she was worried that he would go out of her arms, but she seemed to have stopped him from contacting with the other recklessly because of the other party's status. Only then could Edgar realize how great a little girl in front of him who couldn't even speak properly yet was. It seems that the other is a great public figure with high social status. Unless there is a small difference in status, there is no way parents will hurry to stop their babies from playing with each other. Our family is said to be a baron. There must definitely be a huge social difference between us. He does not know the exact level difference according to the noble class, but he has heard that there is a significant difference between the counts and the barons. Among all of them, the other party was the daughter of the Grand Duke, who was in the highest position except for the Supreme Emperor of the country. It seems that he needs to be extra careful about his actions after this. If I accidentally hit her while playing? Oh, he dare not even imagine it. Wouldn't the 3 generations, including his parents, be destroyed the moment he caused even a scratch? Maybe the old family, including all the relatives, will disappear from the world in an instant. As a dizzying thought crossed his mind, Edgar shivered and dug deeper into Katria's arms. "Katria, don't stop them, let the children play. Isn't it nice to have a leisurely drink and have a chat with each other?" Helena, the mistress of the Robeham family, who was keeping an eye on the 2 children, readily suggested. As Katria was anxious as she didn't know what kind of unwanted accident would occur, she didn't dare to accept her offer and carefully lifted her lips. However, It's just something you can tell the maids to watch over for a while. All children grow up with children. If you say so. All right. The Blahak family is a subordinate vassal of the Robeham family. This is the so-called master-servant relationship. Knowing it would be a greater disrespect for her to say more words, Katria was compelled to bow her head in agreement and lay her son down on the carpet. "Mother, why are you leaving your one and the only son alone like this?" When Katria put the boy down instead with mixed emotions, her leftover Edgar had to watch her back like an abandoned puppy. His buttocks touched the ground, and the soft feeling of the carpet felt as if he was sitting on a cloud. Then Ariel is laid down opposite him as soon as he is. When she met his eyes, she said, "Pa," again and called out loudly and approached him with all 4 feet. So cute. Even if she wasn't the main heroine, she is still a girl who played a role in a romance fantasy novel. Her features stand out even though she is only just a 2-year-old baby now. Edgar felt more distinct than his future. Yes, let's think positively. If this is the case, you should play with the daughter of the Grand Duke's family and earn some point. Who knows, Helena, who was proud of her own actions, will give words to her husband so that the Blahak family would receive even the smallest benefit from her. By the way, if you want to catch the enemy, you have to shoot the horse first. Pick it. Baba. What will babies be interested in? There may be countless opinions, but there was one thing that Edgar thought as the most formal and certain idea. Twinkling object is the best. Apostrophe. Of course, the sweetheart of the Grand Duke may have grown up looking at all kinds of gold and silvery treasures, but that will only happen at most a year later. In addition, people are more interested in things they see for the first time than the things they are used to seeing. Edgar picked up the little pendant hanging around his neck and took it off. Something he received from his father, Lancelot, shortly after his birth. Apparently, special magic was given, but he didn't know anything about it. Now it's just a toy to soothe the precious princess. D-A. Bah. He waved the pendant in the air as if to get it quickly, and Ariel snatched it up, doing it just right. Apparently, his thoughts were correct. Edgar watched her and smiled with satisfaction as she wiggled the pendant to and fro in her hands. Her tiny hands clasped the pendant hard, as if she was somehow playing with hard clay. Well. Dada. But the piece is short-lived. Ariel, who was fiddling with the pendant string, suddenly shoved it into her mouth. Edgar hurriedly let out a babbling scream and grabbed the pendant with both hands. Then a loud cry followed. Although it was closer to whining than shouting from a third party's point of view, Ariel, who heard it in front of her, seemed to be shocked. Her face hardened as if time had stopped for a moment, and soon her plump cheeks trembled. Ah! Edgar sensed that something was wrong. In front of his eyes, the scene 3 seconds later plays hazy, and a cold drop of sweat rushes down his back. 3 seconds pass and... Boah! As Edgar expected, Ariel starts crying. Hearing the sad cry, he rushed to the maid on both sides and the two mothers who were away. Is my life going to end here? Feeling that his second life, which had only lasted a year, had come to an end, Edgar let go of the pendant in his hand. It would be difficult to live unless the magic that dwells here returns the time to 1 minute ago. As Helen's face gets closer and closer, his complexion only paled in comparison. 2. Became a friend of the high social status person. Thumb. Edgar's heart pounded hard in his chest. There was no adult present to explain what had just happened here, and he couldn't explain it himself either because he was still in the body of a kid who couldn't even properly talk yet. What should I do? Edgar thought worriedly. Of course, it happened between two young children who could only babble so far yet, so Helena might be generous enough to forgive. However, this is after all, still his own assumptions. Since the incident had occurred, he wasn't able to let go of the tension until the matter was resolved. This is going to make my heart explode. Leaving aside his matured mental age, his body is that of a 2-year-old kid currently. The poor little tender heart of a child who can't even properly walk yet, let alone his secondary soul, was beating so violently that it was scary. Meanwhile, Helena, who heard Ariel's cry, strode over and asked the maid beside her of what had just happened. In this kind of situation, the maid should say what she saw truthfully. In any case she might say something that's in favor of Edgar unintentionally. Was she able to comprehend what had just happened here? Sheffy, Helena's personal maid, smiled softly and parted her lips naturally as if what had just occurred wasn't a big deal. It's nothing to worry, madame. It's just a mistake young Master Edgar made trying to help the young miss. Help the young miss? How much help can a 2-year-old boy give to another child of the same age as him? Helena blinked her eyes in confusion and looked at Sheffy probingly. Sheffy continued over her explanation with a gentle smile on her face. Young Miss wanted to bite the pendant young Master Edgar had just gifted to her, so young Master stopped her, which then caused her to cry out, Madame. A 2-year-old? Yes, that's right. It was quite unbelievable. She turned her head at Sheffy for confirmation again. Sheffy was also her best friend who had spent a long time with her. Other than her husband, Sheffy was the one she trusted the most. That's amazing, he's just a 2-year-old and he already has the instinct to protect my daughter? Helena slowly bent down and stared straight into the young Edgar's eyes. He's still a 2-year-old baby who isn't even a full 2-year-old baby if calculated by the time he was born. Still, how was he able to perform such miracles like this? Even though the person whom he had just met for the first time, approached him right away and was staring straight at him, the child held her gaze firmly without any signs of wavering or fear. Meanwhile, Katria was forced to watch this scene unfold from the sideline. Inside she was anxious to death. It was fortunate that her son did not commit any big mistake. However, it is inevitable that the consequences are different, as the one who has just cried out was the one and only sole heir of the Grand Duke Dam. Katria. Yes, Mrs. She calmed down her voice as much as she could and responded. Helena's words continued after that. Has young Master Edgar's future career been decided yet? Future career? What future? Katria's eyes widened. He is still only 2 years old. Of course, since he is the eldest son, he will have to take over as the family head in the future, but his future hasn't been particularly decided yet. Because he is still young. We haven't talked about it yet. Is that so? Katria was lost in thought when she heard it. Everyone knows that the Blahak family has been serving the Rabeheim family for a long time. If 3 or more years passed by and 10 more years later, Edgar will likely become the loyal servant for Ariel, as both their family relationship has been like this since the generation of their ancestors. Isn't it so? Katria knew that the boy's future was not up to him to decide anymore. It is impossible to defy this fate that has been passed down from generation to generation. It can't be helped, as the one and only daughter is forced to take over the family and has to rule this vast northern region with an iron-blooded grip. It will be hard for her to have a true bosom friend whom she can share her heart with. There are several children of the same age as her from those aristocratic families, but they will be for just exchanging gifts on the surface, and for greater benefits in return. It has been like this, so it's a mission as an heiress of the Grand Dukedom. If only she had brought her husband along, he too would have spoken in a similar fashion. However, this will not be the future that a mother would want for her child. At least one person as a servant is already enough. Friendship is another level within human relationship, which cannot be replaced by anyone, family, lover or servants. Friends can share secrets with each other which they cannot share even with their families. And friends can be entrusted with things that cannot be entrusted even to their servants. Helena wished for at least one such person to be present around her daughter, because it might be the last gift she can give to her child who would have to bear the heavy burden of this Robeheim family in the future. Katria. Yes, Mom. I have a favor to ask from you. Can you please fulfill it for me? Anything, Mom. Even if she is told to cut open her stomach with a knife here, she has to obey. In front of the power gap between their two families, there is a rule that is, to obey the commands. Edgar, I want this child to be raised together with my child. Do you mean you want to raise him as a servant? It's not particularly different, but more like following up with the trend. When it comes to the servants of the House of Grand Dukedom and such high-status families, it is necessary for them to have skills such as good personalities and knowledge, so there were many cases of bringing in children of other lower aristocratic families. For those aristocratic families, it allows them to have connections with the higher social status noble families, so it was not a bad deal in the first place. However, the answer Helena gave out was quite different from what Katria had expected. I want to make him her friend, not her servant. What? Friends? Friends? Katria slightly doubted her ears at this point. Of course, in order to maintain the innocence of children at a young age, there were cases where they were allowed to be friends without considering the difference in status under the mutual agreement between the families. But there's also a certain amount of advantages to it. A family whose authority is so weak that even a baron could plot from behind, and the heir of the Grand Duke, one of the top 3 elites in the empire, make friends? But, Mom, I appreciate that you think well of my child, but he's not enough to be a friend of Her Highness. She knows how shameful it is to belittle her own child as a parent, but this is the only way for now. If Helena had said to raise Edgar as a servant, she might have been able to accept it right away, but the gap between them was too wide to become friends. Eventually, when they get older and their children grow up and Edgar comes to know the truth at that time, she doesn't know if she would be able to bear the shock Edgar will have at that time as his mother. It's all right, Katria. I don't want this kid to do anything. Helena stared at the eyes of the little boy who had not yet gazed away from her. She didn't see a resemblance of a valiant warrior or a profound air of a great scholar in this child. However, it was this child who gave her the illusion that he would stay by her daughter's side no matter what happened. Edgar, please take care of my child. I don't know if she'll grow up like her father to be blunt and unable to look around. Please watch this child by her side. The Grand Duchess bent her head and asked a favor from a 2-year-old child. Katria tried to stop her, but Sheffy, who was watching this in the sideline, shook her head lightly and gave her a wink as if to leave it alone. Ta-da. Whoa, yes. Thank you. At Helena's request, Edgar raised the pendant high in his hand and responded with great courage, and such small action caused a smile of relief engraved on her lips. No matter what, she is confident in her judgment of people. She was born weak and had nothing to show off, but this perspective of hers played a big role in achieving her current status. Edgar, who gave the promised, stared curiously at Ariel sitting across from him. Dark raven hair and crimson red eyes. Even though she was only 2 years old, her features were delicate and exquisite, foreshadowing the tremendous beauty she would become in the future. A pity, such a person is short-lived. This was the only information he has on the girl named Ariel Robeheim. Why she died, who was the cause of her death, who was guilty of it and who was falsely accused of it. He has no knowledge about her. He reached out to touch Ariel's cheek. At the same time the warmth was conveyed to the small hand, Ariel's head tilted slightly as if to tell something. It would not be bad. At least if this girl will not be a bad fictional character that will disappear. He thought that it would be nice to watch someone growing up. He is not boasting, but he is confident in his adult mindset to play with a 2-year-old kid. I might be having fun in the future. Apostrophe. It was a good thing for Edgar anyway. The Robeheim family, which he will have to serve in the future as the next head of the Bulhak family, has been perfectly impressed by him already. Not only that, he became friends with a girl of high social status from one of the 3 great houses in the empire. Oh, he fell asleep. Maybe it's because he put too much tension in a little child's body. Edgar, who was holding Ariel's cheek and wriggling, was defeated by exhaustion. He seemed like a reliable man just a while ago, but the child is still a child. Helena smiled, picked up Edgar herself and handed him over to his mother, Katria. Please be my daughter's good friend. That is all I want for her as a mother. 3. The princess is disingenuous. In the blink of an eye, the 2-year-old kids who became friends in their first meeting has both grown up to the age of walking and playing together. Before they knew, they had both turned 10 years old and they were often running around without knowing fear. On the day Ariel visited the Bulhak family holding the hand of her mother, Helena, Edgar's hands and feet were both busy. She was a tyrant. To be more precise, she was more like a gangster. The thing she wants, she must get it, and the things she wants to do, it has to be done no matter what. In a way, it could be predicted as a personality suitable for the next head of the Grand Dukedom. Edgar had been following up with his routine of physical training from an early hour that has started since he turned 10 years old. He wanted to build up his body in advance as the future head of the Bulhak's family, since he knows that his brain is totally a mushed-up case. In this era, strong physique and high martial arts can also be recognized as an ability. Ed, let's go to the mountain today. You just arrived unannounced like this. He is not sure if this can be considered natural because of the difference in the family status in the first place. Again? You were scolded when you secretly went to the mountain the last time. Edgar sulkily replied to Ariel, who suddenly appeared, without even saying hello. It's okay. I can go without getting caught this time. Ariel boldly expressed her ambition by stretching her chest out, which has yet to grow. Edgar could be sure that this is the least reliable line he has ever heard. Doesn't this little Grand Duchess remember exactly what happened just 2 weeks ago? Are you going to fall down and cry again? Who's crying? Ed, you idiot. Who's crying? Of course it's you. As the eldest daughter of the Robeheim family, Ariel has been learning various studies including imperial studies from a young age. But inside she was a girl just like others who would cry even from just a small scratch. You can't remember? You fell while climbing the hill and cried to me. Oh. Tell me one more time. And I'll really beat you up. You're already beating me. Ah, I see. Stop hitting me because it hurts. How on earth does this destructive power come from the hands of this delicate girl? Edgar was ready to shed tears because of the pain on his back. By the way, why does she want to climb the mountain so badly? Has she been reading any adventure novels recently? Does a 10-year-old kid read novels? He is not sure either. At least, in his opinion, novels were something one touches only after becoming an adult. It's uncertain whether a 10-year-old would enjoy reading books with only words and no pictures. It seems that she has get her hands on a book that depict pictures of adventure in an interesting way. He should also ask her to share some of them if he has a chance later. But how in the world are you going to get out? There are many guards too. The previous mountain exploration was only possible because of luck. Even if they are friends, the other party's identity is the heir of the Grand Duke, one of the 3 most powerful house in the Empire. There are always bodyguards who are protecting her from the shadows. Escaping from their eyes is the most difficult task for a 10-year-old. However, Ariel looked somewhat confident while listening to Edgar's concerns. To be exact, it was as if she had been waiting for this question to be asked. Her shoulders were also higher than usual. Good question. Let's go inside for now. That's how I can show you. What? Right. Ed, I brought you a present today. Did you know? I have no idea. I didn't even know that you were coming over in the first place. It's a gift anyway. What's up with him? As mentioned earlier, she was a tyrant. He is used to receiving presents, but to especially prepare gifts was not something ordinary. Nope, let me rephrase it. It is that she has never conceded to Edgar. Particularly, she's not a bad kid. Ariel was especially used to teasing Edgar. When they were playing like best friends, the 2 of us happily ran around in ha-ha-ho-ho, not knowing the time was passing, but after that moment, she pouted and ticked him for no reason. I can't understand the feelings of children. He doesn't know if it is because of the difference in gender, but since it's not the case it only deepens the query. In addition, it was difficult to interpret the intention of her giving a gift because of her past mischievous actions. Maybe she will put a caterpillar she brought from somewhere on her hand and gives it as a gift. I am looking forward to it. Alright. I'm sure you'll be surprised, my mom said it too. Hey. Hearing that, I could feel a little bit of relief. No matter how much she is a princess, a 10-year-old kid would not sell out her mother's name. Mrs. Helene is trustworthy. For Edgar, Helene was nothing short of a saint. It was thanks to her that he was able to talk informally with the daughter of the Grand Duchess, whose status difference was enormous at this moment, and she was also the one who always treated him and Ariel as if they were her own children without any discrimination. Thanks to that, his faith in Helen was complete. I'm kind of curious. What kind of gift will it be? Although the mental age to inflate expectations for a gift has passed, since it was a gift directly from the daughter of a Grand Duke, not from anyone else, he became curious. Thinking of her family, I wouldn't be surprised if she suddenly brought a mansion and said, "It's a gift." Guess that went too far. Regardless of the power, it will be a small gift because it is the right amount of gifts that only 10 years old can give and receive even if they are best friends. Recently, reading books has become interesting, so it would be nice to get an interesting book as a gift. I can only hope she has enough sense. 2 people entered the building talking like that. Ariel walked freely through the main building of the Blahak family with familiar steps, as if it were her home. It is not a surprise thing cause this mansion is her most visited place except for her own house. Come to think of it, I've never been to the Robeheim family. According to what I heard in the past, it is an ancient castle of a huge size. If I get a chance later, can I go there someday? From his point of view, the Blahak family's mansion was large enough, but he wanted to see it at least once in his life as it is a huge castle that could only be seen in books. Huh? Where are you going? After a moment of bewilderment, Edgar opened his eyes wide when he found Ariel heading to the left hallway. There is a fixed place for the 2 to go inside this mansion. The dining table at mealtime, Edgar's room to play, and a reception room at someone's parents' call. Among them, if we have to consider it now, it will be the playtime. Even so, somehow Ariel's steps were directing somewhere else. I'm going somewhere other than Ed's room. Different place? It's getting harder and harder to understand her. Anyway, Edgar followed her silently as she was leading the way. She didn't know what kind of reaction would come out if she tickled him here. There. Ed, hurry up. Oh, yes. She pointed to a small storage room in the corner of the first floor. A shabby place that is usually used by servants to put away things and the other odds and ends that are no longer needed. It was also a place where even Edgar, who lives in this mansion, had rarely visited. A heavy squeak sounded. Perhaps it hadn't even been properly oiled recently. The door opened with the distinctive scream of a wooden door. At the same time the door opened, white dust covered the two of them. His eyes were so itchy that it was almost shedding tears. Aku. Cough. Cough. How the hell are we managing this place? At least, dusting once a week wouldn't pile up this much of dust seriously. Edgar immediately took out the handkerchief from his bosom and held it out to Ariel. Cough. Hurry up and cover your nose and mouth with this. What about you? Because I'm done. Ariel stared blankly at the handkerchief held out to her, then accepted it with a shy nod. Anyway, why did you ask me to come to a place like this? Do you have anything you need here? Edgar soon rummaged through the piles of luggage in the storage room after breathing in the fresh air. Certainly, in a place like this, you wouldn't have to worry about being caught by the guards. What are you going to do? I'll show you right away, so wait a bit. It seems that there is indeed a gift, something prepared. Ariel suddenly walked to the center of the storage room and crouched there. Soon, she rummaged something out of the small pocket attached to the chest of her jacket. Edgar looked closely, and there was a pile of unidentified powder on her little palm. In the first place, he had no magical talent. Not to mention the fact that the Blahak family's bloodline can't perform magic for generation. Naturally, there were no books or items related to magic in the mansion. If there is, it is just a magic tool that ordinary people can use. Look carefully. Using this. Ariel started muttering something while her hands were half clenched into fists. Although Edgar was unfamiliar with magic, he could tell that it was an incantation chanted before using magic. He has seen people use magic a few times before. Can she use magic already? It is said that even the world's best wizard can only learn mana at the age of 10, and activate magic only when he is 12 years old. How much talent does this little girl in front of him has? Unknowingly, goosebumps appeared on Edgar. A giggling sounded. Soon after, the light that was getting bigger in her hand rose into the air, and it headed straight to the wall of the warehouse. Then, as soon as it touched the wall, it became a circle larger than the size of the two. Beyond that, to his surprise, he could see the outside of the mansion. It's the first magic I learned. Isn't it cool? Are you going to secretly go to the mountain with this magic? Yes. It was a naive answer, but I couldn't believe it was the behavior of a 10-year-old. What kind of kid learns magic and break through a hole in the wall to enjoy a day of escape? The way she thinks is different. Of course, it is not impossible if you have that kind of ability. Edgar, whose absurdity had disappeared, pointed at the wall with his chin in desperation. Then he took a small knife that was lying in the corner of the warehouse. I'll be able to get rid of the branches of trees with this. Since it happened like this, it would be better to go quickly. A bright smile bloomed on Ariel's face after reading Edgar's actions. 4. The princess is disingenuous. The mountain the two were climbing was quite famous for its mountain path that was quite rugged, and there was no man-made path to walk on either. You'll probably be able to spot some of the trails that the mountain animals used to wander around if you searched carefully. But if you chose the wrong path, you never knew what kind of beast you would meet at the end of the road. The beasts might not appear. Since he had only visited once before, Edgar had no idea what kind of beasts inhabited this place. Judging from the fact that wild boars occasionally come down from the mountain and ruin the crops in the village, it seems that at least wild boars live here. Why did you want to come here? Mom said that young people should be close to nature and admire them. Aren't mountains the best for that? What a great way of thinking. Of course, it's not wrong, but don't you usually think of open places like fields, flowers and gardens to get close to nature? Even Helena herself, who gave the advice, would never expect for her daughter to head to the mountains thinking that she was right. I'm sorry, Madam Helena. It's my fault for not stopping this guy. To be honest, if she were someone who would listen to it with just words, he would have said it with words, but she is a girl who is more childish and self-reliant than anyone Edgar had ever seen. Now all he could do was to deter her from committing more dangerous acts. Ed, look at this, isn't it amazing? What is it? When Ariel pulled out a bunch of weed and showed off, Edgar, who was picking his nose with his pinky finger, replied curtly. What do you want to show me today? Still, seeing how he responded to her calls, he realized he too had become accustomed to this life naturally. In fact, most of the objects and phenomena that Ariel showed off were quite surprising to his eyes. I saw it in a book. It is April. Where is the weed used for? The juice from here is said to be applied directly to the wound. And the leaves are grounded to be used as ingredients for making potions. You are indeed well informed. At least, for a 10-year-old kid, it's quite rich in knowledge to know about such contents. Could this be a fragment of the education handed down from the Grand Duchy? Edgar involuntarily exclaimed and observed the cross-section of the cut stem intently. It's really great. You don't believe me, do you? I told you this excitedly, but you look like you are talking half-heartedly. Ariel sprang up from her seat, and a blood-colored aura resembling her crimson pupils surrounded around her body. Is this the magical power of domination that is passed down only to the lineage of the Grand Duke? Edgar felt the hairs all over his body stand on end. Regardless of whether or not you are at the age where your hair had yet to grown out properly. A little bit? This reply is for Ariel's "Don't you believe me?" Although the reaction that followed was somewhat frightening, his words were sincere. Because he had this kind of personality even before he came to this world. Never mind. I won't tell you anything from now on. Humphrey. Angered by his candid remark, Ariel turned around her body. And as if expressing her anger, the April leaf she held in her hand turned into powder and fell to the ground. If I do something wrong, I will die. A drop of cold sweat ran down Edgar's back. Still, the fortunate thing is that unlike her appearance, her personality is quite simple, so her anger calms down subtly. Let's take a chance. Even if you call her name with a soft voice right now, it is certain that only a cold response will come out saying, "Why?" How to hold your breath and wait for the right timing is a must for these situations. Edgar got up from his seat and followed after her quietly. Crunch. Crunch. A glance. Crunch. Crunch. Dot. Dot. The air that had been quite friendly until just a moment ago suddenly subsided, and there was no conversation between the two. Only the sound of twigs and growing grass being stepped on filled the quiet atmosphere. Meanwhile, Ariel paused her steps once in a while to check on Edgar with a roll of her eyes. It's cute. Of course, Edgar was aware of this. But here, he also knew that if he didn't notice why she kept looking at him, he would be in an irreversible state. That's why when she stopped, he would look away from her or swing the branch in his hand for no reason. How many times have he repeated that? While Ariel paused her steps again, Edgar, who had discovered something, called over and stopped her. Huh? Ariel, wait a minute. What's wrong with you? It was a reflexive mumble though. Ariel belatedly realized that it was a chance for them to reconcile, but she ruined the chance with that one sentence. However, it is now a boat that had already left. Meaning she has already messed things up and it is now irreversible. Ariel, you idiot. Although she is a maverick, she is by no means an idiot. She was far wiser than anyone among her peers. Even if Edgar did something wrong first a while ago, she is aware that it was not something big to grumble about for so long. However, from a certain point on, she was reluctant to reach out first, and as she was stubborn, it came to this point. First of all, what needs to be done immediately was clear. Anyway, since he is the one who called her first, she shall turn around as calmly as possible, ask why he called her, and when their conversation is over she will then talk about real business. Ariel, who visualized the situation in her head, nodded in satisfaction. It's something she can do well with her own ability. Because she's the eldest daughter of the Robeheim family, no one else. Means she can handle this much of problem with her own strength because she is the little Duchess. Good. As soon as she turned around, something touched her head. Huh? What is it? When she looked around, what was happening with her eyes wide open, Edgar stood there with his hand outstretched to her head. She was told to wait for a moment, while Edgar smiled, saying don't be angry. He carefully retreated his hand and Ariel felt a foreign object on her head. Rather than having the feeling of something on top of her head, it felt like an object was stuck in her hair. Oh, I can't check it because I don't have a mirror. What is it? It's not a spider, is it? While guessing what is on her head, Ariel's complexion turned blue when she thought of this possibility that was difficult to put it into words. She could forgive all other bugs, but she hated spiders as much as they hated her. If he dare put such a demonic creature on her dark raven hair, which is her pride, even as a prank, he's gonna met with the best revenge plan she can cook up. How can I put a spider? Am I crazy? It's a flower, a flower. Flower. Why flower all of a sudden? Ariel, who was puzzled, carefully reached out her hand above her head, and touched something delicate and soft like a flower petal. I know Edgar isn't a bad friend, but he wasn't the kind of person to do this either. What kind of wind was blowing that made him do such an honorable act? There is a flower that you said was pretty before. What was it? I can't remember the name, but it's red and long. Ah. Amaryllis. Ariel couldn't keep the name of the flower in her mouth and muttered it to herself. The other day, when they were climbing the mountain together, they found amaryllis which was in full bloom. She remembers saying that she was delighted because it was her favorite flower, and she never thought he would keep note of that. Do you see that? It is the same as the one on your head. When she followed Edgar's hand direction and looked, she saw a red amaryllis that really bloomed next to the rock. Why did he suddenly gift this to her? As Ariel turned her head and stared at him, Edgar coughed and gave a low murmur while avoiding her gaze. It was my fault earlier. So don't be angry. Only then did Ariel know. This amaryllis is a gift from him as a token of apology. She don't know if it's really bad or good, but coincidentally, the timing of the two's apology overlapped. They both thought of apologizing together. Humans are such a peculiar animal that they tend to stop when someone does exactly what they were about to do. Especially, the more you think about it, the more you do it. Come on, Ariel Robeheim. What are you doing? I'm sorry, too. I shouldn't have been so angry. That's all I need to say, but why am I so speechless? While blaming her tight lips as if they had been glued, she suddenly looked back on her memory. Come to think of it, she seldom said sorry to him. Maybe she can't because she's trying to do something she's never done before. If she knew this would happen, she would have made it a habit to apologize earlier. When she looked back on her mistakes, she felt emotional and felt like tears were about to come out. No, that's why I have to do it. There is something that her mother, whom she admires, told her. A person can make a mistake, but it is right to realize it and correct it afterwards. That's right. This is the moment to clear up the karma that has accumulated so far. There were such complex problems and high obstacles for a 10-year-old child to apologize. Ed? What? Yeah, let's just say it in another way, not sorry. I want to apologize, too. Yeah, she thought she could said it out loud easily. Ariel's mouth, who clenched HWRT fist and was determined, finally opened. S. Sir? S. Do you want to play word chain? As Edgar tilted his head to the side and expressed his wonder, Ariel's face turned red like a beet. And soon after, I'll accept it as an apology, you idiot. The princess was embarrassed. The previous resolution was turned into dust at once, and she rather took out her frustration. Edgar was dumbfounded, but anyway, he decided to let go because she seemed to be accepting his apology. "Oh, yeah. Anyway, you're going to forgive me, right?" "Well, yes. That's fine, then." "What do you mean?" Ariel wanted to shout that, but the ship had already been unable to leave and sank to the depths of the sea. She turned again and bowed her head as before. Her ears were so hot, but she tried to ignore them. "It's all because of Ed. It's just that I was surprised that he gave me a flower like this all of a sudden." Shouting a protest inside her mind that would not be heard by anyone, the two head further into the mountain. 5. The princess is curious. They didn't encounter any dangerous situations at the mountain they visited. Even though they have only been here for once, they seem to be more familiar with the mountain road than the last time they came. The only trouble was that the path along the mountain was wet and slippery. It had rained 2 days ago, but since it was quite a heavy rain, there were several places that weren't completely dried yet. Normally, it should be snowing rather than raining in the northern region, but Ardenham, where Edgar resides, was a different story. The temperature is relatively mild thanks to the location being in the southernmost part of the northern region. In addition, since it is right next to the sea, it was also a place where it often rained rather than snowed. The trees haven't completely dried up yet. Not to mention, he couldn't even get some sunlight in, because of these thick vegetation. If this was flat area, the fact that the mud was rather soft could help, but on a mountain road, it could act as a landslide by the slippery grass. "Ariel, walk carefully. Don't worry. Are you afraid that I will fall again?" Although Edgar had many things he wanted to say, but he struggled to swallow them all back. Although she was only 10 years old, or perhaps because she was 10 years old, Ariel was often overconfident in her abilities. Watching her like that by her side made him feel uneasy, like his own child who was always being put on the water's edge. Meaning he is always afraid of her getting into trouble. When he turned his head and looked back at the way they had come, he could see that they had already walked deeper than he thought. Going any further than this would be dangerous. He wanted to avoid situations that could be dangerous since he knew that wild animals such as wild boars also live in this mountain. Besides, it's also hard to tell the way back. There was no man-made path for people to walk on, but it was a situation where they had to skimp through the branches and grassy patch of the forest. If you went deeper into the forest by mistake, you probably won't be able to find the way back down the mountain. He doesn't want to be the center of the joke about being the young master in distress trapped on the mountain behind his own mansion, so Edgar decided to stop the girl's steps by turning her attention appropriately at this point. "By the way, Ariel, how did you make that magic?" "Yes. Magic?" Edgar stepped onto the flat rock right next to him and asked casually. "If the person accompanying you on a hike like this stops, you naturally follow and stop." Only then did Ariel stop her busy legs and respond to Edgar's words. "I heard that few people can use magic, even adults. But how did you learn?" "I don't know too much, but in my family there is something called the magic of dominance." As expected. I had a glimpse of it in a book. The sole power that made the present Robeham family exist, and the reason why they were able to reign as the rulers of the North. The lineage of the Robeham family consists of enormous magical power. The name of the magical power of domination comes from the legends that the first head of the Robeham family used this magical power to make all the northern peoples submit to him as his subordinates. The legend may be false, but the lineage is certain. Just by looking at the aura he had seen earlier, it was easy to envision how much enormous the magical power she had in her possession. Because she is still young, she must have magical powers leaking out to the surroundings according to the changes in her emotions. Now, he just prays that he doesn't fall victim to that unruly magical power. That magical power has a unique nature, so people in my family were able to wield their magic like our own limbs from their young age. Awesome, isn't it? Awesome. This time, it wasn't a flattering tone to please the princess, but an admiration that came from the heart. Because there is distance of a whole world apart between Edgar and the word magic. Edgar was born with less magic power, but above all, it was impossible to use magic because he had a special constitution that did not circulate magic power. In other words, there is magic in the body, but that cannot be exercised. He has one of the rarest and the most miserable constitutions in this world, and thanks to that, he is unable to use magic at all. It was to compensate for these shortcomings that he decided to improve his body more. Perhaps that's why he is envious of Ariel, who was born with a talent that he did not have. I envy the little 10-year-old kid. In addition, those with great power were also given such responsibilities. The eldest daughter of the Robeheim family, someday the title will weigh on the little girl's body. Although he don't know if he will be able to stand by this girl's side when the time comes, at least to be able to catch up with her, I cannot have envy but confident. He was so lost in his own thoughts for no reason, that he couldn't even pay attention to Ariel. When Edgar groaned and came to his senses, worried red eyes were already watching him. Ed, what happened? Your face is weird. You are the one who is weird. It sounds strange when you say that. Of course, he has never thought of himself as handsome. In the first place, he was born with the face of Kaiwo, his former self from his previous life. He particularly didn't remember thinking that he was ugly, but compared to the characters from the romance fantasy world, he was nothing more than a squid. Depressed. On the other hand, Ariel was already in the shape of a beautiful flower bud before blooming, at the age of 10. He sees this kind of face from time to time, so how can he not lose his self-esteem about his own face? Ariel, well, I didn't mean that. You stupid. I asked because you looked serious. Edgar, I know, I'm just kidding. It's nothing, so you don't have to worry. Ariel, I'm glad to hear that, but... Ariel examined Edgar's facial expressions until the point where he feels uncomfortable. I appreciate your concerns, but your eyes really bothered me. In the middle of the day, a clear shining crimson red eyes are staring at you, and how many people will be able to ignore it? You're quite quick to catch the change in expressions. Normally, she's busy playing around, and she's an immature princess who likes to play pranks on him, but she was sharp at this. Especially since she was so good at examining the complexion of others or reading their mood that even Edgar was often caught off guard by her. Maybe it's the trait of the descendants of the Robeheim family, who have won the battle for power among the bloody nobles. Ariel, let's not worry about anything and sit down and rest. My legs hurt. Edgar, did your legs hurt? Then I'll help you. Ariel, actually, it doesn't hurt very much. Still, it was the first time in a while that the Maverick Princess made such a face, so he decided to keep his mouth shut. It'll only be dangerous if they go further into the mountains anyway. It would be best to talk moderately here, kill time, and quietly return to the mansion. Wouldn't Mrs. Helena be looking for us by now? No, it'll be fine yet. What makes you so sure? Helena showed mercy the last time they ran to the mountain, but this time it will be hard to get over it. He, too, would be caught in the hands of his mother, Katria, and be very embarrassed. A deep sigh escaped his lips as he imagined for the worst. It's dangerous to go in any further, so let's stop here. Why? Is there anything scary in there? There are rumors that there are wild boars and wolves' lives on the mountain. This is not a place for kids like us to go. Edgar deliberately exaggerated the rumors a bit. If it wasn't to this extent, the immature princess wouldn't immediately accept it. However, it seems that this girl's curiosity and determination were bigger and stronger than he expected. A wild boar and a wolf? Do you miss me? The red eyes that had been dimmed a moment ago were relived instantly. Did I choose the wrong wording? Unfortunately, there was no backup function in the world, and there was no way to take back the words that are spoken. I'm doomed. Edgar cursed his poor judgment that he couldn't even anticipate his childhood friend's behavior. Honestly, this is unfair. Apostrophe. If God is watching this scene, wouldn't it be ethical for him to rewind the time to 5 seconds ago? He thought it could happen so from the bottom of his heart. Helena, holding her daughter's hand, visited the Blahak family after a long while of absence. Having a nice and cozy chat with her old friend Katria, Helena raised her eyebrows at the behavior of the maid who burged in without knocking. "Lady, my lady. It's bad." "What's going on?" "Sheffy." It wasn't because it broke the fun atmosphere. Because she wasn't that sensitive. It is just because she saw Sheffy, who usually maintained her cool demeanor, now losing her composure and sweating profusely. "Oh, the lady is gone. Master Edgar." "What?" It was not Helena, but Katria, who reacted abruptly to Sheffy's words. A similar thing happened the last time Helena and Ariel visited together. At the time, Helena didn't reprimanded them much and pass it on, saying that such things will happen when children are playing together. But if such an accident happened twice, the story was different. "Have you searched in the mansion thoroughly?" "Yes. I searched everywhere outside, including inside the mansion. But I couldn't." "Okay, let's calm down. Katria, you and young Master Edgar are the only ones who suffer because of our immature daughter?" "Oh, number. How can it be the princess's fault?" Even if it was actually Ariel's fault, there was no way she could say such a thing in this situation. Katria scolded herself with her head down, saying it was her fault for not teaching her child. Helena watched this with a pitiful expression, and reached out and patted her shoulder. "Let's find the children first. Sheffy, release all the soldiers right now and search the area. It's likely that they've gone to the mountains like last time, so search mainly around there." "Yes, my lady." Sheffy busily ran out of the living room. Helena, who gave a series of instructions without losing her composure as much as possible, now slumped in a chair as if she lost all her energy. She was worried about her missing daughter, but she was not concerned about what should be done when the little girl returns. It's easy for a child to commit the same mistake again. Heartilda. A deep sigh flowed out and filled the room. That immature princess must be running around not knowing that her mother is so serious. If she had gone to the mountains again, Edgar would have stopped her. Because he was born like that so. Nevertheless, repeating the same behavior without listening to advice means that it is time to strongly admonish her as a mother. "Don't worry, Mom. I'm sure the soldiers will find it in a short time." "Yes, thank you, Katria." Dark clouds instantly filled the peaceful atmosphere.